Welcome to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Taban. We're coming to you live from Studio 12 here at Auckland Park in Johannesburg. Last week was yet another bad week for journalism in South Africa, as the Right to Know campaign released a report confirming what we have always feared, that journalists' communications are being intercepted illegally by the state. This is a piece of shame, to say the least. As if this is not enough, the ANC is toying with the idea of getting the SABC to cover political parties according to the parliamentary representation. Can you believe it? This is another kick in the teeth for independent journalism in South Africa and must be condemned with contempt. The SABC must remain independent and impartial and get rid of any remnants of sunshine journalism in their midst. Political parties must not expect favors here, but must only expect fair and robust coverage. But tonight we're not dealing with that. We put in a spotlight on the issues of land with leaders of the ANC, EFF and the DA. Advocate Dalimpofu, Mr. Ronald Lamola and Mr. Jacques Julius are here to battle it out and help us understand how South Africa should be approaching the land issue. Should the constitution be amended to accelerate land reform? Should tribal land be excluded? If not, what was the king on about this last week in Mbizo? Before we talk to the guests, let's take a look at this.
The government, nor the ANC has any intention whatsoever to take the land from the Ingonyama Trust. I reaffirmed that land is under the control of Ingonyama Trust as per legislation, and in the end it is a land that he has custody of on behalf of the people in KZN.
A lot of mixed messages on the land issue, and tonight our political parties are going to help us understand exactly where they stand on these issues. Let's talk frankly to them. Welcome, gentlemen, to Frankly Speaking.
Hello, Chese.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. Mr. Lamo, let me just start with you.
Thank you, John.
Right? Yes. Thank you for making it. I was slightly worried there when you arrived late. But anyway, tell me, should the constitution change or must it stay the same in order for land reform to be accelerated in South Africa?
From the ANC's perspective is that the constitution has got enough instruments that can enable us to address the land reform question. So if our participation in the process is to clarify and remove any ambiguity and put without compensation. That is our position.
But the constitution does not say expropriate without compensation. It surely talks about equity, equitable value and so on.
Yes.
So if you're going to introduce without compensation, are you saying you can do that without amending the constitution?
Yeah, it can be done from what the constitution as it stands now. But there has been debates in society that this provision has not been tested. And it's for that reason that the ANC said we need to move forward and test this process. Yeah. But if this process of the public hearings, if it ends without us having got the clarity, we'll have to remove the ambiguity and attend to changing it to remove any ambiguity.
But your president has said to a group of Afrikaners the constitution is not going to change. And it's now just said nobody's going to touch Ingonyama Trust. Can you quickly clarify that?
I think on the Ingonyama Trust, JJ, our position is very clear. We are dealing with communal land in the whole country. It's not just an isolated land, just dealing with the Ingonyama Trust. We need to give security of tenure to rural people. It must be clear in terms of how secure they are.
The king is angry. He seems to think you want to take his land that is under the Ingonyama Trust. What confused him then?
I really don't know, but what has always been ANC position is to provide security of tenure to people in rural areas. And what we're busy investigating is how do you make sure that people in rural areas have security of tenure. And in terms of that, you can do a record, for example, the current PTOs which they have and make them, for example, you can only register title deeds today. But you can record and register a PTO or you can convert that into a title.
And then
so that is the debate that is happening.
We'll come to that a little later after I've given the other parties a chance. But the issue of the parliamentary process, is it a farce? In other words, you have already made up your mind that the constitution is not going to change. So those public hearings are not going to change that.
It's not a fast, because we are saying we need to participate in that process.
Yeah, but then explain why the president goes to another community and say it's not going to change. Why did he say that?
Remember, the president has got an obligation from time to time to engage and so forth, but he must be persuaded by the outcomes of the hearing, and members of the ANC are participating in those hearings as we speak now. And they are giving clarity in terms of any ambiguity to be removed.
I'll come back to that point. I'm not convinced about that answer, but that's fine. Advocate Mpofu, you know, you're saying that the land must be under the custodian of the state. Does it include the Ingonyama Trust in your view? Because your deputy president was quite clear to say this Ingonyama Trust was a last-minute thing before '94, and now people are pretending as if it's always been there. What is the view of the EFF on how to deal with this issue of land in the context of tribal land?
Thank you, JJ. Well, firstly, you must accept my sympathies of trying to get a straight answer from the ANC on the question of land is an impossible task. Look, no, we are very clear. We say all land. All. All. A-L-L. There's no ambiguity. All land in South Africa, every piece of grass must be under the custodianship of the state. Okay? So we've agreed on that. Even in our meeting with Contralesa, you look at our statement, it says all South African land. Then you get to modalities. And if you're going to have all South African land under the state, you have to change the constitution. I don't know what's so difficult for the ANC in this. Ronald knows, as he's a lawyer, he knows that the constitution as it stands now provides for compensation. It goes further. It gives you 5 criteria to use. One of those criteria is market value. The courts of this country have interpreted that to mean your starting point is market value. Market value means what? Money. So I don't know what their problem is. So if you want to make it clear that you can expropriate land, you have to amend the constitution. Then the second issue is the one that I've just mentioned. All land must be under the custodian.
So the king has something to worry about. He was right to be angry this week.
No, the king has nothing to worry about. What we're saying is that, as it says in our Contralesa statement, then how you then get into legislation as to who distributes on behalf of the state here.
So Ingonyama may have a role.
It might have a role, and in fact it will have a role. The institution of leadership will have a role, whether that is the Ingonyama Trust, whether it remains as it is, whether it must be amended. Those are modalities that must be debated.
All right. In terms
we do have a problem, and we've raised those problems. All we're saying is that we don't think that debate must happen out there. It must happen behind closed doors, but we will
I'll give you some more
issues,
chance to explore that. From the DA side, Mr. Jacques, what is the DA's view on this whole issue of expropriation without compensation? Just give us a summary of your position.
Yes, thank you, JJ. But first, allow me to also apologize on behalf of the ANC. I think it's a trend nowadays.
On behalf of the ANC?
Can apologize on behalf of the ANC nowadays.
You can't apologize.
They actually
we don't need Dali and the
They're flip-flopping.
They are flip-flopping on policy.
No, wait, just give Jacques a chance.
It shows the policy drunkenness of the ANC, because they're flip-flopping every week on their policy on land. They seem not to have this under control.
But you are not flip-flopping. You are saying people must own title deeds.
Yes, we say people must own the land. We must eradicate the imbalances created by the past of apartheid. So we say that people must own that land. They shouldn't be...
But they must own the land they already have.
Yes, and land that they should acquire. Okay. If we hasten our land redistribution program as it stands in the Constitution, the Constitution is not an impediment to land reform. In fact, it is the ANC government that for 24 years have flopped on this one. And now they're flip-flopping on policy because it became an arduous task for the ANC to radically transform the society.
But you don't want to touch the people who already have land they don't need. If I have 30 hectares of land, you don't want the state to come take that land, give it to somebody else, in simple terms.
Well, with compensation, yes. The way
with compensation, so you must be paid for land that you may have acquired illegally.
Well, if you have acquired land illegally, there are processes to do that.
All right.
But remember, there are people that paid for their land
And those who
they
didn't
must
pay for
be
it.
compensated.
I want you to deal with the ones who didn't pay for it. When we come back from the break, no, wait,
Sure.
I'll give you a chance. When you come back from the break, you must tell me, this person has inherited this land that was stolen, and now they are sitting with 30 hectares, they're only using 1 hectare. What must happen? We are talking tonight to the political parties, EFF, DA, and the ANC about land. Stay tuned for the continuation of that debate after the break.
The people who burn the school are our parents. They want us to have a bright future, but they are doing this.
Refrain from burning schools, refrain from burning property. I am not missing my words. Those that shall be found, definitely they must face the full might of the law.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. Tonight we're having a debate on land, a very, very serious debate. We've seen public hearings around the country, every party going out there to try and persuade the public to understand their views. Let's go back to the DA now. Mr. Jacks, again, please clarify us here. People who are saying, right, you guys don't want to touch land that people already have. You're saying, no, deal with the other pieces of land, deal with the fact that you haven't done land distribution in the last 24 years. I want you to address me on a farmer, for example, out there has 30 hectares of land. They inherited it from their ancestors, in a manner that can be considered to have been stolen. How are you going to deal with that in the context of redress?
Thanks, JJ. I'm glad you say in a context of being stolen, because it's not all land that was stolen from people. Remember, as the Constitution stands now, Section 25, the way they want to change it now, the proposal by the ANC and EFF says to me that even my land will be taken. So they are not clear on policy, first thing. But I think that as the DA stands, we want land reform to be done in a very responsible manner, because we cannot go back to what happened in Zimbabwe and so forth. We must learn from our mistakes that was done in the past.
But briefly, compensation is critical for your position. So in other words, you are opposed to this thing of without compensation altogether, under no circumstances.
Yes, where the Constitution stands, you can have that thing.
All right.
You can have it without
Advocate, can you just deal with this issue of compensation in the context of what Jacks is saying? Saying not all land was stolen. People who have titled these, for example, for whatever 300 hectares that they now own. If you come to them and say, let's take this, he's saying, no, that would be unfair. What is your response to that, and how are you addressing this whole issue? And it's also in the context of social cohesion. How will this make sure that we remain a nation that can move forward?
Yes. No, thank you, JJ. You see, I mean, the DA's position is better in the sense that it's clear. It's wrong, but it's very clear. It's very clear that they want the status quo to remain. 13% of the land must remain in the hands of Africans. And the stuff that's been happening for the past 25 years of so-called reform must continue. Now, it's clear that that's not going to work. Even the ANC has acknowledged that that's not going to work. What we're saying, JJ, is that the land question, remember our struggle essentially was about land. The ANC was formed in 1912 because of the threat of the 1913 Land Act. Somewhere along the way, they thought that their mission is about voting, but actually their mission was about land. And 200 years before that, the fights that were happening here were about land. Why? Because the land is the basic economic commodity. You can't talk of anything economic without land. The reason that white regimes killed our people by their thousands for land is because it's important. If it wasn't so unimportant, they wouldn't have mowed down thousands of people. So that's the starting point. And then the issue you are raising of the historical injustices, that this land was stolen and taken at gunpoint. Now, normally we would say, okay, well, you took it at gunpoint, we want to take it back at gunpoint. No, we're saying, no, it's fine. Let bygones be bygones. Let's all share it, black and white. Nobody, we're not saying grab it from people because for revenge. Everyone must have a piece. What's wrong with that? But it must be equitable, and the state is the only instrument that can do that. So there are only two ways, JJ. You can either believe that you can redistribute the land by using the market, which has failed, or by using the state. Those are the only two ways. And in China, in Mozambique, in many other places, the state owns the land and the sky has not fallen.
Let me bring it. ANC seems to be sitting somewhere in between here. In that you don't want the state to own all the land. You are agreeing with the DA that people must have title deeds. Am I right?
Yes. No, JJ, there is no in between. We are saying the ANC, the policy has been clear that ownership of the land, the state can own the land, communal associations can own the land, which include tribals and so forth. Also private individuals and title deeds. We are very clear that that should not change. What must change is the fact that there is 87% of the population, which is largely white, which is still owning the land. We are saying let's use an expropriation bill, an expropriation act which says let's expropriate without compensation in those circumstances to give land to the people both in rural areas and in the urban cities.
In the position of the ANC, compensation doesn't arise at all. In other words, going forward, nobody must expect that if the ANC government expropriates land, they'll be paid anything at all.
No, it must not be market related. The land reform must be clear. There will be instances where there will be no compensation, where the land was stolen, the history of acquisition is clear.
But will there be instances where there will be compensation?
Yes, there will be instances. Which are those? Circumstances where somebody might be owning a property which we need, which is clear that he paid for. We must pay him for for example, you paid 50,000 for a farm. After 1994, we must pay you back your 50,000.
So there will be compensation. So people who own vast tracts of land don't have to worry about the ANC position. They will be paid for their farm.
Like the DA.
No, they won't be. For example, JJ,
either they'll be paid or they won't be paid.
No, there will be circumstances where they will not be paid. There will be circumstances where they are paid. For example, JJ, 60% of South Africa's arable and commercial land is lying fallow. Let's expropriate that without compensation immediately. We are saying
but
that
if it's lying fallow, it means nobody's bothering about it.
Yes, they are not. No,
but the land
it's productive, JJ. It's not like it's unproductive land. It's productive arable land, which is lying fallow, which is not being used. Yes. So we're saying let's take that 60% immediately across the country as we move. You can find
do you get clarity from what the ANC wants to do as opposed to what you do?
But JJ, I think you are not fair with time. You have given them enough time. Let me explain. And
you can give him 100 years. You never know what he's saying.
I think you need to be clear. We are very clear on that. No, I must be brief. There is indeed 60% farmland across the country. As you move around, you will see 60% of the land
not being
used. And it's available. Let's take that land. From whether it's a commercial farmer, why,
let me hear how the other colleagues are understanding. Jacques?
Yes, I'm glad the ANC is moving closer to the DA. It's a rather sensible solution to the land reform.
Well done. Congratulations.
Yes. I think
they are closer to your position.
Yes, they have managed to listen.
Us to take anything.
They have managed to listen, but it's because that the ANC is using this for electioneering.
Okay.
And it can never work when you work with people's emotions. Land reform is an emotive issue.
Why do you say they're using for electioneering?
Well, because it was never the ANC's position until the EFF came up with it. The ANC in Parliament said that we will take the land. The President said we will change the Constitution, and we will. Now they're going to people, and suddenly they see that, listen, the EFF had the upper hand when they mentioned land. It's an emotive issue in our country, and now the ANC is jumping on the bandwagon, but the wheels are starting to burn on the ANC, so they must now return to a more sensible solution, a responsible way of land reform, like the DA is proposing.
It looks like the ANC and the DA their positions almost closer to each other, which may mean that your approach may not see the light of day.
No, it will.
Since combined, they are more in parliament, which must amend the constitution.
No, let me tell you why our approach will see the light of day.
Okay.
It is because the majority of South Africans,
regardless of political
prefer
persuasion,
our position. And the ANC, it's correct, realize that. Their own research shows that people want their land, as you have seen in the so-called review committee.
Yeah.
So it's true. If I can tell you one thing, if the land is not returned properly and the constitution is not changed before the elections. Oh, I mean, if they are prevaricating now, imagine after the election, all you'll hear is that food security, all the things that Cyril Ramaphosa is saying. And now look at the opportunistic way in which they are approaching the Ingonyama Trust issue.
Yeah.
It's all about elections. They go there. When they say the Ingonyama Trust is fine.
What about them with Contralesa?
Let's bring that.
Let me tell you what we said with Contralesa. Let me tell you. We said to Contralesa, to their faces, for example, you cannot have gender discrimination. You cannot have bribery. You cannot have this thing of people getting land with bottles of brandy. And they've agreed to that.
Let's pause there. I want us to deal with this issue of agriculture issue you have raised, by the way, but whether indeed the land issue can help us deal with this issue of food security. It looks like the ANC put it as top of mind in amending the EFF's resolution. We are in a debate here on Frankly Speaking with DANC and EFF on the issue of land. You can follow our show on #FranklySpeaking. Let's take a break. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. My name is Nkgopotse JJ Tawani with leaders around the table of the EFF, ANC and the Democratic Alliance on issues of land. The ANC made it a point to amend the EFF's resolution, which the DA rejected, by the way, on the issue of food security. I said, yes, it's fine, as long as it does not destroy food security. What was that about? I mean, was it because there's an impression that when you expropriate land without compensation, suddenly food security is threatened? What was it about, Ronald?
I'm happy the EFF does not need votes, so Dali is not electioneering. But what I want to say, JJ, is that, no, the ANC's position in that regard is that we need to unlock the land. We must expropriate the land that is there to give to black people who want to farm, to create black emerging farmers. So that create a better side of food security, because we are now going to bring a lot of people into farming. For example, as we speak now, we have about 12% of commercial land across the country, which can go, as we speak, in KZN and Mpumalanga, to African farmers if the Department of Rural Development give them title deeds. In that, it includes youth, it includes women, and that is almost 75% of what we speak of in terms of agricultural production in those provinces.
But do you have an impression that if you didn't put that caveat, the resolution itself was inadequate in addressing issues of food security?
It was not an impression. It was to put the resolution in a positive note to say, when you give the land to black people, you are unlocking a skill, you are unlocking a number of people into the mainstream. All right,
let me ask.
So that we can link them with the economy and also the market.
I hear you. Why did you accept that amendment as EFF? Did you just think it's frivolous, doesn't add any value or subtract anything from the resolution? Or indeed you realize that it's a necessary addition to make sure that the resolution is complete?
No, remember that caveat came from Nasrec. First and foremost. No, we don't accept that. It's an insult to black people. I mean, if I say to you, JJ, I'm going to make you run my factory, but I need production. It means I'm suggesting that by giving land to black people, there's a threat to food security. It's the exact opposite. if you give land to the people of South Africa, food security is guaranteed galore.
But you didn't reject that amendment. That's what I'm saying.
No, they didn't put the amendment in Parliament. The amendment came in from NASREC. It's their resolution from NASREC. That's why it's the body language.
It's also part of the parliamentary motion.
No, there's no food security.
No,
there.
it is.
That was a caveat the ANC put on your resolution.
It's not there. What they say there is that what they say is this thing of the review. Whether or not, yes. You go and look at it. But wherever it is, it's nonsensical because it suggests that there's a threat to food security. No, because I think maybe we were just so happy that you finally saw the light. You know these people, let me tell you, the first thing we did when we got to Parliament in 2014, we offered them the 6%, they rejected it.
So I need to get the DA in.
They rejected it. When we were having discussions with them about the metros, we asked them about land, they rejected it. Last year in February, we put the resolution, they rejected it. So when they finally saw the light, we were very happy.
You are in bed with the EFF in various metros and so, right? How is this going to work around the land issue going into the next election?
We're not in bed with anybody.
Yes, we're not in bed with the EFF.
It's a friends, whatever, guys.
It's a relationship that we have.
Yeah, and they threatened you to say if you don't vote on land, you are out. They even wanted to fire your mayor in PE. How is this going to work?
That is our principle.
No,
if the EFF wants to do it, they can do it. But we stand on our principles. We will not leave our principles just to stay in government. If we have to leave government, we do so. There's no problem in doing it. But coming back to the issue of today, irresponsible land reform will definitely lead to food insecurity in our country, as I said earlier.
So you agree with this edition of the ANC on food security?
They agree on everything.
Well, we are saying, no, the ANC is actually agreeing with us They're actually agreeing with us because we were the first one to say, be careful of what you are doing, what you are proposing, because they have flip-flopped.
We've run out of time, gentlemen. I'm sorry.
We say...
Your parting shot, quickly, on the land.
The ANC, when it comes into government, started a land reform program. So it is very serious, it's committed to this program.
All right.
These two are married together in all the cities.
Parting shot?
Is their program wrong?
If you're going to wait for the ANC to reform land, you're going to wait for another 200 years. It will never happen under them. The body language, when they talk about land, their president almost chokes every time he mentions land. It starts with the food security. They don't mean it. It's just a little game for them. And land is a serious issue. They must be warned.
Let's leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was Frankly Speaking. The land debate continues on #Frankly Speaking. Until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.
SABCnews.com is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need. With the website